The message came at midnight. Earth time. It was a simple distress call. Nothing special about it. Just words sent across the darkness of space, begging for help. But those words would change everything. Kang Taiho stood in the human embassy on Station Prime, watching the large screen on the wall. He was 42 years old, with gray in his hair and old scars on his hands. He had been a soldier once. Now he was a commander without a war to fight. The Galactic Coalition did not like war. They did not like fighting. They especially did not like humans. Humanity had joined the coalition 19 years ago. In a group that had existed for 12,000 years, 19 years was nothing. Humans were babies, children. The other species smiled at them, politely, and ignored everything they said. The screen showed a recording. A face appeared. It was not human. The creature had blue skin and 4 eyes, and it was crying. "Please," the creature said. "This is Colony Orvan 4. The swarm has found us. Our shields will fail in 6 days. We have 200,000 people here. Families, children. Please send help. Please. Anyone." The recording ended. Taiho looked at the 2 people beside him. Yoon Hana was his chief engineer, a woman of 34 with quick hands and a quicker mind. Park Junho was his communications officer, young and eager at 26. Both of them stared at the screen with the same expression. Horror, sadness, and something else. Something hot and sharp. Anger. "The Harrow Swarm," Hana said quietly. "I read about them. They eat everything. Plants, animals, people. They move from world to world like locusts." 200,000 people, Junho whispered. "There are schools on that colony, hospitals." Taiho said nothing. He walked to the window and looked out at Station Prime. It was a beautiful place. Towers of crystal and light. Ships coming and going. The heart of galactic civilization. And somewhere in that heart, the Coalition Council was meeting right now to discuss the distress call. He already knew what they would decide. 1 hour later, Elder Voss made the announcement. Voss was ancient, even by alien standards. His species lived for thousands of years, and he had seen empires rise and fall. He stood before the council with his hands folded, his face calm. "The situation on Orvan 4 is regrettable," Voss said. "However, intervention is not strategically viable. The colony is too far. The swarm is too dangerous. Our resources are too precious to risk. We will send our thoughts and condolences to the survivors, if there are any." That was it. 200,000 lives. Dismissed in 30 seconds. Taiho watched the broadcast with his fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Beside him, Junho made a sound like he had been punched in the stomach. Hana simply stared, her face pale. "They're just going to let them die," Junho said. His voice cracked. "All those people, all those children, and they're just going to watch." "It's not logical to save them," Hana said bitterly. "The math doesn't work out. Too much cost, too little benefit. That's how they think. That's how they've always thought." Taiho turned away from the screen. His mind was racing. 7 ships. He had 7 ships under his command. They were old ships, tired ships. 2 of them were supposed to be retired. But they could fly. They could fight. It was insane. The swarm had destroyed entire fleets. What could 7 human ships do against billions of creatures? But then he thought about the blue-skinned creature on the screen. The 4 eyes full of tears. The voice full of fear. Begging for help that would never come. No, not never. "Junho," Taiho said. "Get me a line to Fleet Command on Earth." Junho blinked. "Sir, do it now." "And Hana, I need a full status report on every ship we have. Fuel, weapons, crew readiness, everything." Hana stared at him. Then, slowly, A smile spread across her face. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Yes, sir," she said. 3 hours later, Tai-Ho stood before his crew. There were not many of them. A few hundred people on 7 ships. Most of them were young, like Junho. Some of them were old, like him. All of them looked scared. Good. They should be scared. What they were about to do was terrifying. "You all know why we're here," Tai-Ho said. "You've seen the message from Orvin 4. You've heard the Coalition's response. They've decided that 200,000 lives aren't worth saving. They've done the math, and the math says those people should die." He paused. The room was silent. "I'm not good at math," Tai-Ho continued. "I never was. But I know one thing. When someone calls for help, you answer. You don't check the numbers first. You don't calculate the risk. You just go. Because that's what it means to be human." He looked at their faces. He saw fear, yes. But he also saw something else. Pride. Determination. Anger. The good kind of anger. The kind that made people stand up when they should sit down. The kind that made people fight when they should run. "The Coalition thinks we're too emotional," Tai-Ho said. "They call us the angry species. They think it's an insult." He smiled. "Let's show them what human anger can do." The cheer that followed shook the walls. Within the hour, 7 ships departed from Station Prime. The Coalition watched them go with confusion and contempt. Those foolish humans. Those emotional, irrational creatures. They would die for nothing. But on the bridge of the Defiance, Kang Tai-Ho looked at the stars ahead and felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. "Set course for Orvin 4, he ordered. "Maximum speed. Those people are waiting for us." The journey to Orvin 4 would take 4 days at maximum speed. 4 days of pushing the engines beyond their limits. 4 days of hoping they would not break down in the middle of nowhere. Cho Min-ho sat at the pilot's controls of the Defiance, his fingers dancing over the buttons. He was 29 years old, with messy hair and dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept since they left Station Prime. He did not plan to sleep until they arrived. "You're going to burn out the core." Hana's voice came through the speaker. She was down in engineering, watching the numbers climb into dangerous territory. "Then I'll burn it out," Minho replied. "We don't have time to be careful." In the engine room, Hana shook her head but did not argue. She understood. They all understood. Every hour they wasted was an hour those people on Orvin 4 spent in terror. Every hour was another piece of their shield failing. Another family saying goodbye. She turned to her team. 3 young engineers, all of them exhausted, all of them working without rest. "Keep the core stable," she ordered. "I don't care how. Use tape and prayers if you have to. Just keep this ship flying." On the bridge, Commander Tai-Ho stood at the window, watching the stars blur past. Park Junho sat at his station, monitoring communications. His face was pale and tight. "Sir," Junho said quietly, "I'm picking up Coalition transmissions. They're talking about us." Tai-Ho did not turn around. "What are they saying?" Junho hesitated. "They're calling us irrational." One ambassador said, "We have a death wish driven by unprocessed aggression." Another one said, "We don't understand mathematics." That the cost-benefit analysis is clear. Tai-Ho laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. "They think we're stupid," he said. "They think we don't understand that we might die. They think we haven't done the math. Have we?" Junho asked. Tai-Ho finally turned. His eyes were hard but not cold. "I did the math, Junho. 200,000 people on one side. A few hundred of us on the other. The math is simple. Their lives are worth more than ours. Not because they're more important, but because there are more of them." Junho stared at him. "Sir, I'm not saying we're going to die, Taiho continued. I'm saying that if we do, it will mean something. That's the math the coalition doesn't understand. Some things are worth dying for. In the lower decks, Lee Somi sat in the armory, checking her weapons. She was 38, with short hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. She had been a combat medic once. Then she had become a soldier. Now she was both. A young soldier sat across from her. His name was Kim Do-won, and he was barely 20 years old. His hands were shaking. "Captain," Do-won said, "are we really going to fight the swarm? I heard they destroyed an entire fleet once. Thousands of ships." Somi looked up at him. Her eyes were calm. "Yes," she said. "They did. Then how can we win? There are only 7 of us." Somi put down her weapon. She leaned forward. "Listen to me," she said. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is dangerous. We might not come back. But I'm going to tell you something that the coalition species have forgotten. Something that humans have never forgotten. What's that? Fighting isn't about winning. Fighting is about refusing to give up. It's about standing in front of the monster and saying no. Even when you're scared. Even when you're small. Even when everyone else runs away." She picked up her weapon again. Those people on Orvan 4 are waiting for someone to say no. They're waiting for someone to fight for them. And we're the only ones who answered. Do-won's hands stopped shaking. He nodded slowly. "I understand, Captain." "Good. Now check your gear. We'll be there soon." On the 3rd day, Junho intercepted a weak signal. It was broken and full of static, but the words were clear enough. "Is anyone there? Please. The shields are failing faster than predicted. We have 2 days. Maybe less. Is anyone coming?" The voice was young and frightened. It belonged to a creature named Ren, a member of the Kella species. Ren was barely an adult, and he had spent the last 3 days trying to boost a signal through the swarm's interference. He had almost given up hope. Taeho walked to the communication station. He took the microphone from Junho. "This is Commander Kang Taeho of the Human Emergency Response Fleet," he said. "We hear you. We're coming." The silence that followed lasted only a moment. Then Ren's voice returned, cracking with emotion. You're human?" But the coalition said no one would come. They said it was too dangerous. They said, "The coalition was wrong," Taeho said firmly. "We're 2 days away. Can you hold on?" I don't know. The swarm is everywhere. The outer districts have already fallen. People are dying." Taeho closed his eyes. 2 days, 48 hours. It was so close and so far at the same time. "Listen to me, Ren. Tell your people to gather at the center of the colony. Tell them to protect the children and the elderly. Tell them help is coming. Tell them the humans are coming." "The humans," Ren repeated. Yes, I'll tell them." "Good. Stay strong. We'll be there." Taeho ended the transmission. He stood still for a long moment, his hands still on the microphone. The bridge was silent. "Sir," Junho said quietly, "the swarm has billions of creatures. We have 7 ships. How are we going to save them?" Taeho looked at him. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But we'll find a way. We always find a way." He turned to Minho. "Push the engines harder. I don't care if they catch fire. We're not going to be late." Minho grinned. It was the grin of a man who had nothing left to lose. "Yes, sir." Burning everything we've got. The stars blurred faster. The engine screamed. And somewhere ahead, 200,000 people waited for the angry humans to arrive. The Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and for a moment, everyone on the bridge forgot how to breathe. The swarm was worse than anything they had imagined. Billions of creatures filled the space around Orvan 4. They were black and shiny. each one about the size of a dog, with too many legs and too many teeth. Alone, one of them was nothing. Together, they were a living storm. They moved like clouds, like waves, like nightmares given form, and they were everywhere. Contact! Minho shouted. Thousands of them, coming straight at us. He threw the Defiance into a hard turn. The ship groaned and shook. On the screen, the creatures swarmed toward them like angry bees. All ships, open fire! Taiho commanded. The 7 human ships lit up the darkness. Lasers cut through the swarm. Missiles exploded in bright flowers of light. Creatures died by the hundreds, by the thousands. Their bodies burned and scattered, but for every 100 they killed, 1,000 more took their place. There's too many! Junho yelled. Sir, there's just too many. Keep firing. Taiho shouted back. We're not stopping. In the engine room, Hana grabbed the walls as the ship shook again. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Alarm screamed. One of her engineers fell against a console and did not get up. I need more power to the shields. Minho's voice came through the speaker. I'm giving you everything I have. Hana shouted. The core is already at 120%. Then give me 150. Hana looked at the numbers. 150% would destroy the engines. But if the shields failed, they would all die anyway. Do it, she told her team. Push it to the limit. The Defiance surged forward. Its shields glowed bright blue as creature after creature crashed against them and died. But the glow was getting weaker. The shields were failing. Around them, the other ships were suffering too. The Byzant's Hope had lost half its weapons. The Han River was trailing smoke. The smaller ships were barely holding together, but none of them stopped. None of them turned back. Below, on the surface of Orvan 4, the colonists looked up at the sky and saw something impossible. Ships were fighting through the swarm. Bright lights cut through the darkness. Someone had actually come for them. Governor Talek stood at the window of the emergency shelter, his old hands pressed against the glass. He had been governor for 40 years. He had never expected to watch his people die. He had never expected anyone to save them. Who are they? He whispered Dot beside him. Young Ren was crying. But for the first time in days, they were not tears of fear. Humans, Ren said. The humans came. In orbit, Taiho made a terrible decision. We can't land the big ships, he said. The swarm is too thick. We'll have to use the drop pods. Everyone on the bridge went quiet. Drop pods were small capsules designed to fall from orbit to the ground. They were fast and hard to hit. They were also incredibly dangerous. There was no way to steer them. No way to slow down if something went wrong. You just fell and hoped for the best. Ground teams, prepare for deployment, Taiho announced over the ship's speakers. Captain Lee, you have command on the surface. In the armory, Somi stood up. Around her, 50 soldiers were checking their weapons and sealing their helmets. Some of them were praying. Some of them were crying. All of them were ready. You heard the commander, Somi said. We're going down there. We're going to save those people. And we're going to kill anything that gets in our way. Young Doan stood beside her, his weapon in his hands. He was not shaking anymore. Let's do this, he said. The drop pods launched. 50 small capsules shot out from the human ships and fell toward the planet like meteors. The swarm tried to stop them. Creatures swarmed around the pods, clawing and biting. Some pods were damaged. Some were destroyed. Inside one of them, a soldier screamed as creatures tore through the metal, but most of them made it through. Sami's pod hit the ground hard. The door blew open, and she jumped out with her weapon firing. Creatures were everywhere, crawling on the buildings, filling the streets. She shot them as fast as she could. When her weapon ran out of power, she switched to another. When that one ran out, she pulled her knife. Form up! She shouted. Protect the evacuation point. Her soldiers gathered around her. They formed a circle, their backs together, their weapons pointed outward. Creatures threw themselves at the circle again and again. Bodies piled up. Blood splashed on armor. But the circle held. Hana's drop pod landed near the shield generator. She had not been ordered to go down. She had gone anyway. Taiho would be angry with her later. If there was a later, the shield generator was a massive machine, old and damaged. Pieces of it were on fire. Other pieces were simply broken. Hana looked at it and felt despair. Can you fix it? Ren asked. The young alien had found her somehow, crawling through the chaos to reach her. I don't know, Hana admitted. This technology is ancient. Nothing like what I'm used to. Please try. If the shields fail completely, nothing will stop the swarm. Hana took a deep breath. She looked at the machine again. It was alien. It was broken. It was impossible. But impossible was just another word for not yet done. Get me some light, she said. And find me tools. Any tools. We're going to keep this thing running if I have to hold it together with my bare hands. Above them, the battle raged on. The Defiance was burning in a dozen places. Minho flew like a man possessed, dodging and weaving through the storm of creatures. He was laughing, actually laughing, as death surrounded him on all sides. Come on, he shouted at the swarm. Is that all you've got? It was not all they had. But for now, it was not enough to stop the angry humans. Not yet. The next 6 hours were the longest of their lives. On the ground, Sami's team fought without rest. The creatures kept coming, wave after wave after wave. For everyone they killed, 10 more appeared. The streets were filled with bodies, human and alien and creature alike. Dohan fought beside Somi, his young face covered in sweat and blood. He had stopped counting how many creatures he had killed. He had stopped thinking about anything except the next moment, the next target, the next breath. Captain, he shouted, I'm almost out of ammunition. Use your knife. Somi shouted back. Use your hands if you have to. Don't stop fighting. Nearby, a group of colonists huddled in a building, waiting to be evacuated. Children cried in their parents' arms. Elderly aliens prayed to gods Somi had never heard of. A young mother held her baby close and whispered words of comfort. Even though her own hands were shaking, Somi looked at them. She thought about her own family, far away on Earth. She thought about her brother, who had died in a mining accident years ago. She had not been there to save him. She had carried that guilt for years. Not this time. Hold the line. She screamed. Nobody dies today. Nobody. Her soldiers answered with shouts of their own. They pushed forward, driving the creatures back, step by bloody step. At the shield generator, Hana worked with desperate speed. Her hands were burned from touching hot metal. Her fingers bled from sharp edges. But she kept going, fixing one part after another. The power coupling is destroyed, Ren said, looking at the damage. We don't have a replacement. Hana stared at the broken coupling. Without it, the generator would fail completely. The shield would collapse. The creatures would pour in and kill everyone. Then we make one, she said. How? We don't have the materials. Hana thought for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It was her personal communicator, a gift from her mother. She had carried it for years. We use this, she said. Ren's eyes went wide. But that's yours. It's important to you. So are those children out there. Hana began taking the communicator apart. Some things matter more than memories. She worked quickly, using pieces of her communicator to build a new coupling. It was rough and ugly, and would probably only last a few hours. But a few hours was all they needed. "There," she said, connecting the final wire. "Try it now." The generator hummed. Lights flickered. And slowly, the shield around the colony grew stronger. Ren laughed with relief. "You did it! You actually did it!" "Don't celebrate yet," Hana said. "We still have to get everyone out of here." Above the planet, the space battle had become a nightmare. The Han River was dying. A swarm of creatures had torn through its engines, and the ship was falling toward the atmosphere. Inside, Captain Beak Jisoo made a terrible choice. "All hands, evacuate to the shuttles," she ordered. "We have 3 minutes." Her crew scrambled to obey. 300 colonists were aboard, refugees who had been rescued from the surface. They were loaded onto shuttles as fast as possible, but the shuttles were not fast enough. The creatures were closing in. "Captain," her first officer said, "we can't get everyone out in time." Jisoo looked at the screen. She saw the creatures swarming. She saw her dying ship. She saw the shuttle so slow, so fragile, and she saw a choice. "Transfer helm control to me," she said quietly. "Captain?" "Do it." The first officer hesitated for only a second. Then he obeyed. Jisoo took the controls. Her hands were steady. "All shuttles. This is Captain Beak. Clear the area immediately. I'm going to buy you some time." On the bridge of the Defiance, Taiho heard her words. His heart clenched. "Jisoo, no. There has to be another way." "There isn't, Taiho. You know there isn't." Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Take care of my crew for me. Tell them I'm proud of them. Jisoo, it was an honor serving with you, Commander. Now get those people home." The Han River turned toward the thickest part of the swarm. Engines burning, hull breaking apart, it flew straight into the heart of the nightmare. The explosion was massive. A ball of fire consumed 10,000 creatures in an instant. The shuttles escaped through the gap, carrying 300 colonists to safety. On the bridge of the Defiance, no one spoke. Junho had tears running down his face. Even Minho was silent, his hands frozen on the controls. Taiho closed his eyes. He would mourn later. Right now, there was still work to do. "Keep fighting," he said quietly. "Her death has to mean something. We're not going to waste it." On the ground, Somi received word that the evacuation transports were landing. The Bison's Hope and 2 cargo ships had broken through the swarm and were descending to the surface. "All civilians, move to the landing zone," Somi shouted. "Go now." The colonists ran, thousands of them streaming through the streets toward the waiting ships. Soldiers covered their retreat, fighting creatures at every corner. Governor Talek was among the last to leave. He stopped beside Somi, his old face full of emotion. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you come?" "Your people died for us. Your ship sacrificed itself." "Why?" Somi looked at him. She was exhausted. Her armor was cracked. Her weapons were empty. But her eyes were still burning. "Because you asked for help," she said. "That's all the reason we needed." She pushed him toward the transport. "Now go. We'll hold them off." Talek went. The last colonists boarded the ships. The engines roared to life. Somi watched them rise into the sky, carrying 194,000 survivors to safety. She smiled, even as creatures surrounded her position. "Captain," Doan said, "what do we do now?" Somi looked at the creatures closing in. She looked at her remaining soldiers, barely 30 of them still standing. "Now," she said, "we make them pay for every second." She raised her blade. The creatures charged, and the angry humans met them head on. The rescue ships found Somi's team 3 hours later. Of the 30 soldiers who had stayed behind, 19 were still alive. They were wounded, exhausted, and surrounded by mountains of dead creatures. But they were alive. Doan was among them. He was sitting on the ground, too tired to stand, his broken blade still in his hand. When the rescue shuttle landed, he started crying. Somi did not cry. She walked onto the shuttle with steady steps, even though her legs were shaking. A medic tried to treat her wounds, but she pushed him away. "Take care of the others first," she said. "I can wait." The journey home was quiet. The human fleet had been reduced from 7 ships to 4. The Han River was gone. 2 smaller ships had been destroyed in the final hours of the battle. 112 humans had died, but 194,000 colonists lived. On the Defiance, Taiho stood at the window and watched the stars pass by. Hannah found him there, her hands bandaged, her face tired. "We did it," she said quietly. "Yes," Taiho agreed. "We did. Was it worth it?" Taiho thought about Captain Beek Jisoo, flying her dying ship into the swarm. He thought about the soldiers who had fallen on the surface. He thought about the young engineer on Hana's team who had died in the first battle. "Ask the people we saved," he said. "Ask the children who will grow up because of what we did. Ask them if it was worth it." Hannah nodded slowly. "The coalition is going to be angry. Let them be angry. We did the right thing." 3 weeks later, Taiho stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Coalition. The chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Most of them were old species, ancient species, species that had been part of the coalition for thousands of years. They looked at Taiho with cold eyes. Elder Voss stood at the center of the chamber, his face disapproving. "Commander Kang," Voss said, "you are here to answer for your unauthorized military action. You violated coalition protocols. You risked coalition resources. You endangered coalition relations. How do you respond?" Taiho looked around the chamber. He saw the disapproval, the judgment, the anger. He also saw something else. In the back rows, where the younger species sat, he saw different expressions. Curiosity, interest, hope. "I respond by saying that I would do it again," Taiho said. "Every time." Without hesitation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Voss raised his hand for silence. "You admit that you would violate our laws again?" "I admit that when innocent people are dying and no one else will help them, I will help them. Call it violation if you want. I call it humanity." The murmurs grew louder. Voss looked irritated. "This is exactly the problem with humans. You are emotional, irrational. You cannot see the bigger picture. May I speak?" A new voice cut through the chamber. Everyone turned to look. Ren stood up from the Kella delegation seats. The young alien was trembling, but their voice was strong. "May I speak?" Ren repeated. Voss frowned. "This is not your place to let them speak." Another voice. Governor Talik rose from the Orvan delegation. Then another representative stood. And another. And another. The younger species were standing. Dozens of them. Species that had been quiet for centuries. Species that had always been told they were too young, too small, too unimportant to matter. They were standing for the humans. Voss looked around the chamber with wide eyes. This had never happened before. "Very well," he said stiffly. "Speak." Ren walked to the center of the chamber. They stood next to Taiho, small and afraid, but refusing to show it. "When the swarm came to our world," Ren said, "we called for help. We begged. We pleaded. And the coalition did nothing. You calculated that our lives were not worth the cost. You decided that 200,000 people should die because saving them was inconvenient." Ren's voice grew stronger. "But the humans came. They didn't ask if it was logical. They didn't check if it was profitable. They came because we were suffering. They came because it was right. They bled for us. They died for us. Not because we could repay them. Not because they wanted anything from us, but because that is who they are. Ren turned to face Voss directly. You call them angry. You say it like it is a disease. But I have seen human anger, and it is beautiful. They are angry because children were dying. They are angry because no one cared. They are angry because the universe is cold and cruel, and they refuse to accept it. The chamber was completely silent. You want to punish them for saving us, Ren continued. You want to censure them for being heroes. But if you do, you will prove what they already believe about you. That you have forgotten what it means to care. That you have lost your souls to mathematics and politics. Ren stepped back. I am done. Talek spoke next. Then other survivors. Then representatives from species that had been ignored by the coalition for years. They all said the same thing in different words. The humans had given them hope. When the vote came, the censure failed. It was not even close. Afterward, Taiho found Ren outside the chamber. The young alien was sitting alone, looking at the stars through a window. Thank you, Taiho said, for speaking up. Ren shook their head. I should thank you. You saved my people. You saved me. We did what anyone should have done, but no one else did. Ren looked at him. That is the difference. That is why the galaxy needs humans. In the months that followed, something changed. The coalition received requests from colonies and outposts that had been ignored for years. Medical aid, disaster relief, protection from threats that the elder species deemed unimportant. Humanity answered them all. They sent ships to dying worlds. They sent doctors to sick populations. They sent soldiers to protect the weak. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to help Dot, and slowly, the galaxy began to understand that human anger was not a flaw. It was a gift. 1 year later, Ren became the first non-human to serve aboard a human vessel. They stood on the bridge of the Defiance II, watching the stars ahead. Beside them, Taiho smiled. Ready for another rescue mission? He asked. Ren nodded. Always. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying its crew toward another world in need. Because somewhere out there, someone was calling for help. And as long as humans existed, someone would answer.